my daughter was like, we're handling something, we're texting, and I said, hey, can you talk? She's like, no, I'm on a date. I said, okay, good. Call me when you're done because we've got something to talk about. And she was like, Dad, I'm just dying.
Just trying to ruin the date.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly.
Yeah, as usual. We're going to thank Mr. Matt Carey. Wow, that's a throwback. Matt Wilson. His radio name was Matt Carey back in the day. So I'm going to ask you right now, guest who I haven't introduced, what movie would be greatly improved if it was made into a musical? Kind of bakes your brain. Think about that one for a while. Who are you? Introduce yourself.
Hey, my name's Kevin Michelson.
Bring that mic closer to you. Bring it on up.
Kevin Michelson.
There you go.
Hey, all right.
Kevin Michelson's on the show today. He's an old friend going back to probably 2016, 2017 is when we met through BNI.
Sounds about right.
If you've been to the Williamson chapter of BNI, which is my BNI, you were the OG group that started the massive growth it's had and has enjoyed ever since, right?
Yeah, I was part of that.
You're the catalyst group.
That mafia.
Yeah.
You want to?
It was you, Bob Taylor, and Melanie Culbreth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who else is on that leadership team?
Paul Kraft was part of it.
He's still part of the chapter as well. Kevin Watson was in there.
Yep. But Paul, I think Paul was actually in leadership at that time.
Was he?
Not really.
I thought you were president when I met you when you were president of the group.
That was like year 2 of the growth.
Was it?
So year 1, I was ed coordinator. Bob was president.
Right.
There was somebody who was secretary treasurer who wasn't, is no longer with that company that she was with, or not with BNI anymore. And yeah, so people come and go, and
they do.
And it continues to grow over there. So.
Well, it's one of those things. When I first met you, I knew I was going to be like, you're just a good guy, friendly guy. And here we are almost 9 years later. Oh yeah, about 9 years, 8 years, 9 years. Still friends, man. And for those of you tuning in, yes, this is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. Trying a couple of different things here, being a little bit more casual, getting into things, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners and entrepreneurs and professionals, and we have real conversations that meander, such as the last episode, which was with a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Mike Mercurio.
Who you introduced me to.
Yes. How did was that through BNI or through Coach Burt? I think it might have been Coach Burt.
It was at a Coach Burt event, but you had said to me previously that we should connect. So.
Yeah. And you guys have been transacting and having a good friendship ever since as well. So he was on the last episode, and a lot of things about the IRS came up. I went on a little bit of a rant about IRS letters and the font they use on the front of the IRS letter and how intimidating it can be. But funny story. So to kind of follow that up, I think we recorded it a week ago and put it out this week. This is how close to the edge I am. I need to stack up my podcast episodes, but I digress. Part of that was getting a letter from the IRS. You get this feeling of dread, anxiety, it's, oh crap, what now? It's never a good feeling when you see a letter like that.
It's not a love letter.
No.
They're not just checking in to see how the weekend was.
Very minute chance, minuscule chance that it's a good thing. Like, hey, we made a mistake and we owe you money.
Sometimes.
Sometimes it does happen, to their credit.
But human nature being what it is, you're not thinking it's going to be that.
No, because typically it's always bad. There's nothing much good that comes from the IRS. Mm-mm. So I literally, after filming that episode, I go home and what do I find in the mailbox?
Man, you put it out to the universe.
That quick? I literally, they delivered the mail before we recorded the damn episode. So I'm not sure if that really holds water.
Your
Kevin.
Subconscious knew that it had already been delivered.
Maybe. So I'm like, okay, this is just too funny. I got to take a picture of this and send it to Mike. But, it was actually a letter to my wife and myself, 2 separate pieces of mail, for efficiency's sake and saving the taxpayer money, obviously. So I open it up and lo and frickin' behold, we've elected to change your tax return from 2020, and we made a mistake.
From 2020.
From 2020. Typically, it's we made a mistake and you owe us money. No, we made a mistake and you're owed a refund. I'm like, oh, this is too good. This is, wow. I literally got, a couple $100 back.
Fantastic.
It's good. It was a good thing, commendable IRS being proactive. But yeah, I had a little bit of, okay, hopefully it says something that I'm telling the story, because obviously the exceptions do happen.
We recently received a check from a pharmacy that we use exclusively, because that's who our healthcare provider tells us we have to.
Yeah. That
we overpaid by 1 penny.
Right.
And they issued us a check for 1 penny and mailed it to us. And thankfully we, mobile deposit is a thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not driving to the bank to deposit. It's a shame they've already spent 73 cents or whatever a stamp is to send the check to me.
For a penny?
For a penny. Crazy.
That's just something you stick on your refrigerator and for all the world to see.
Oh, no, I deposited it.
Did you?
Well, I guess I still, because it was a mobile deposit, I still had the piece of paper. I should have kept it, but no, I got rid of it.
It's crazy when that happens. Yeah, for a penny.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's like social media fodder. You just put it up there for pure enjoyment.
Yeah. It was one of those things that you're like, I don't know. Yeah. Again, who's checking their operations to make sure that this is a good move and bringing shareholder value.
It's probably
a public company.
CYA fulfillment, maybe.
Right.
Right.
Hey, look, we'll be back next month to pick up the prescription. Maybe you could have just shorted us a penny on that copay that we have to pay.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So we are having you on because, again, you're an old friend, longtime friend, and talking
Emphasis on old.
Not really. You're not too much older than mine, so we're both very young. Any thought about the movie question? What movie should be made into a musical?
Yeah, I kind of was thinking going to the Star Wars series, because that's probably if you I'm a child of the 70s, so my first A New Hope was the probably the first movie that I remember actually seeing in the theater. So we'd have to go back to episode 1. Mm-hmm. Attack of the Clones, which was the one with Jar Jar Binks, and
was that the first episode? I thought that was the Phantom Menace.
I'm sorry, Phantom Menace.
And it's funny because I'm not a Star Wars person. I'm like, I know I thought my Attack of the Clones might have been the third,
but it was such a joke that should be made into a musical.
Really?
And I'm a musical fan. Like, I loved Wicked.
Yeah,
Wicked's fantastic. I've seen it and I've seen it live. The Kenzie, someone we know provided us with a bootlegged copy prior to it being released digitally. And we wore that sucker out, even though some of it was in French. The kind of thing that we love that genre. But to answer your question, I think we go back to probably the worst Star Wars movie, and let's put that into a musical. It can't get worse. Didn't
they kind of already do that? Wasn't the Christmas special somewhat of a musical? It was awful. It was cringy.
No,
right?
I have not. I mean, I watched it back in the day. We're like 78, 80, whatever. Now we're really talking old. But I haven't watched it again, and I know there's been plenty of social media fodder about how terrible that was.
It's right up there with the Fonz jumping the shark episode.
That I definitely know about.
Yeah.
Little known fact there, Normie.
That's a reference that a lot of people aren't going to get either. You got
to be a certain age to know the Cheers reference.
Norman.
So my wife and I went to the same college that Henry Winkler went to, and he was actually my commencement speaker.
Really?
He was fabulous.
It's funny, in real life, he's kind of nerdy. He's kind of a geek.
Very much so.
He's not as cool as the Fonz.
No.
But maybe off, when he wasn't in character, was he similar to the Henry Winkler we know today?
Yes, I would definitely say so.
Really?
And from a standpoint of, the message he provided was very inspirational and, go do good things in the world, take care of people. the world is counting on you kind of message. And walking across the stage, because he handed everybody their diplomas, I said to him, I had just come back from interning at the White House a year before.
That's right, you did that. I forgot about that.
And I said to him, you should be in politics, and I'll be your press secretary.
Nice.
And he was like, no, never going to happen.
Yeah.
So probably a good move on his part.
Under what administration was it that you interned?
Clinton. So this was spring of 94. January to May of 94.
So you were there a year before Monica came into the picture?
Why does everybody say that when I say intern?
Well, I mean, she's known for that. And the reason why I bring that up, and it's interesting that
I was an intern back when it was reputable to be an intern. It's just
before she, I got to say, she got a bad rap, man. I think she got a raw deal. Looking back on it now, I mean, at the time it was fun. We just watched the whole series called the Clinton Affair. You can find it on Amazon Prime. And there's 6 episodes, but for some reason they only have 5. So we had to find the 6th one and pay for it and watch it.
The executive producer was whacked before it was released?
I guess, maybe. But it does exist. And she's a prominent part of the interview, the updated interviews that they've done with the players at the time that had a significant role in the scandal that went down at that time. So Monica was, actively interviewed. Linda Tripp, no, she wasn't in there. But a lot of the other women who levied accusations against him, Paula Jones was a big part of it. But you come away, because, Monica now is over 50 years old. And she's done okay. I was telling Courtney while we were watching it, I'm like, obviously the whole influencer culture wasn't a thing back then. And nobody probably had any idea how profoundly this whole thing would affect her life. You know what I mean? In terms of being able to get a job, The entrepreneurial bug wasn't as big as it is now. It's like if you were to go back in time and say, Monica, look, come up with a freaking hair brand and you'll be fine. Because one thing she had going, she still does amazing hair, right? She's a good looking woman.
You look back on, well, let me give you my perspective of being there. Mm-hmm. And then, now I'm old enough to be the father of young adults who are about that age.
Yeah.
Right. So, at the time that it happened, I was shocked that someone got that close, because
I think everybody was.
But having been there, you are not given that kind of access. I was in the Oval Office a couple of times, in the cabinet room a couple of times, but I had a great internship. I literally was helping produce the weekly radio address.
Nice.
So,
well, you're a natural.
So we were constantly wherever he was, or cabinet members or other key influential people that we were getting. It was basically PR.
Yeah.
So I was shocked that she had that much access. But at the end of the day, he can do whatever the heck he wants. I mean, that's clearly his Achilles heel.
Yeah.
And kind of turning to a really unfair situation for someone 20, 21, 22, 23 to be dealt with.
Well, you bring that up because you remember us being in that age. You're only a few years older than I am, but we only have that relative space and perspective to look back on in life. There's not much life to look back on, is my point. So when you see someone who's a little bit, I think she's right in our age range, right? Mm-hmm. So when it all came out, it was kind of like, all right, you know better. You shouldn't have done that, so on and so forth. As I've gotten older and you look back on it, 22-year-olds, I don't know about you, but to me, it's like I'm still dealing with a kid at this age. You know what I mean? You don't know what you don't know. You haven't lived. You're just getting into life. You haven't figured out who you are yet. And that was utterly amazing to me. I had such a different purview looking at her than when we all found out about it in the late 90s. Because, I mean, the media just smeared the crap out of her. I mean, she was like
completely inundated 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, her life changed in a moment. And I'm not going to say that she's not without fault too.
Of course.
But given the fact that who she was involved with, it was nightmare scenario.
Somebody, we can't do this. If this were to leak, oh my gosh. But you got to wonder if there was a premise, like a nod, wink, wink, like when he got in office, it'd be like, dude, this kind of stuff happens all the time. Just be discreet. Don't let it out. If you just don't do it in this office, take her into the kitchen or whatever. They've all done it. And it's like you go in with that kind of, you got to wonder, right? Because everybody wonders about Kennedy with Marilyn Monroe.
Do we really wonder? Or are we just assuming that?
It's always been rumored, it's one of those romanticized rumors that have permeated culture throughout the history.
I think at this point we've just kind of accepted that.
You did?
People are really imperfect.
Right.
And they're going to continue to not surprise us by continuing to be human and imperfect.
Don't get me, I'm not knocking Clinton, that for what he did.
Sure.
I'm just saying that it's interesting to have like the initial impact of that event. And you kind of followed the media narrative of basically slut shaming is what they were doing to her. And to have that distance, that time distance, to have a different perspective, to be like, oh my God, she's just a kid at that point. She knew what she was doing, but she didn't realize the implications and impact this could possibly have, especially trusting somebody like Linda Tripp to confide in, she completely, turncoated on her. But
and that more than likely was out of, we're going to take him down.
Right.
We're going to take him down. And unfortunately, that's the game of politics, right? Like, and it hasn't stopped. But I think with Clinton in 92 and probably the Paula Jones story, and like, I don't think people care that much anymore.
No, I don't think they really cared then.
Yeah.
They actually went over all the different polls they took when they went through the impeachment proceedings. He still had a very favorable job performance opinion, good numbers.
Actually, really effective.
Right.
They pivoted well when they lost Congress.
Dude, I am a right-wing leaning guy. And I look back at that time like, the guy didn't do a bad job.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Handled some catastrophes really well.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it too, though, is if you're, well, that would never happen to so-and-so. And then it happens to so-and-so and you're like, it's for whatever reason, we hold these people to such a regard that is so high.
Yeah.
And inevitably they're going to disappoint us.
That's what happens, right?
Yeah. But, from the perspective of Monica Lewinsky and what has her life been like? I mean, can you imagine coming across her resume for a job and you're like, there's no way we could hire her. There would be such a distraction because of it.
Well, she actually's got quite a resume. She's worked for, there are companies that saw the benefit of bringing her on.
I'm sure there were a ton that did not, though.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It didn't really help her out, but I mean, I would imagine just because of the name alone, she had a line of handbags for a while that she tried to put out there. I didn't really hear about them until I watched some other documentary, or it was like a, Dark Times of the 90s type of TV show that's out there. And they followed up with her and she was doing like handbags. She wanted to be like Prada. And a couple other things. I think she wrote a book. Now she does speaking, and she's a big advocate for cyberbullying and, against that kind of thing. So,
I mean, can you imagine that scandal in today's day and age where everybody has a camera?
Yeah.
Right. And it's so quickly disseminated.
I can't imagine in the White House you're allowed to have a cell phone. If you're an intern, you're putting it in a basket somewhere. It would have to be.
So this is before I had a cell phone.
Right.
But I was given a White House cell phone while I was there to, we're talking the big Motorola brick phone.
Back before they were even, you had to take them to be installed in your car. Right? Car phones.
This was not a car phone. This was one that you kept with you, but it was meant for, we're at an event, and maybe it's the president's meeting with all the governors, and we've set up interviews with so and so to be on the air with his local or her local. Did you
guys use the Marty back then? You know what a Marty was?
No.
It was for remote broadcasts, and it connected typically to an ISDN line and gave you, who knows if they even had ISDN lines back then.
They did. They definitely did.
But a Marty basically connected to that so you'd get optimum fidelity in your sound. Otherwise, you did it on a phone.
So they actually had a studio separate from what would get pieced together in the Oval or the Cabinet Room or the Roosevelt Room. But there was a studio in the old executive office building where, more of a setting like this where all the equipment was right there. And then for big events, they would actually put a mobile one out on the South Lawn. And that was one of the things, or one of the reasons that Clinton was successful, was they were very accessible to the media.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that the communications team developed was, well, how do we make sure that we're getting this information out immediately? Again, before social media, it was speaker comes off the stage and we're grabbing them and we're putting them on live in Dallas. Or the big issue back then was healthcare. This was the Hillary healthcare days kind of thing. And so we knew exactly where the Congress people that were undecided were, and we would go right after their districts.
Yeah. Very
smart, right? Very targeted, and didn't work out on that particular piece of legislation, but it was a very good strategy.
Yeah. That must have been crazy, man, looking back on how long did you work on was it a summer internship?
No, it was the spring semester, so 4 or 5 months.
That's still pretty cool. I mean, that's got to be surreal.
It was a great experience.
Yeah.
Kind of weird to just, I had a blue badge. I could get in the West Wing whenever I wanted.
Right.
My office was in the old executive office building, but I was back and forth to the press room all the time. And, looking back on it as a 21-year-old kid, you're like, whatever, just another day at the internship here. But
the first week or two was kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm in this amazing, historic place.
First week I turned 21. I was living with my aunt and uncle in Fairfax. And they said, well, we want to take you out for your first beer, wink, wink, for dinner. So
wait a minute. It wasn't your first beer?
Definitely not.
Kevin.
I know. Sorry. So, we're going to go to dinner at the Outback or whatever, and, be home at 6 or whatever. Great. No problem. Well, it turns out we had an opportunity to have the vice president in that studio I told you about. And, I didn't know about it prior to that morning. And now I've got this conundrum. Do I blow my aunt and uncle off for this special birthday that they're planning for me?
Right.
Or do I blow off the vice president of the United States? I blew off the vice president.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Look back on that and it probably wasn't a great decision, but.
Did he know? Did you think he was sitting there going?
He had no idea.
Where's Kevin?
I don't know. He lives here in Nashville. Al Gore, right?
You stop by and be like, why don't you ever think about knocking on his door and be like, hey man, back in 92, I was supposed to be there for you. I totally bailed. I apologize.
I have not thought of that once.
It's an opportunity. There's a reason for calling right there.
I probably won't answer, to be honest.
You still ask.
Yeah.
Could be good for business. Like, hey, but now I'm here for you. Do you want to, by chance, go over your insurance?
That's a great idea, actually. Yeah.
What's funny is they did a whole thing with him. A lot of the things about the Clinton administration was that they showed themselves to be pretty good sports about stuff. Clinton was kind of a juggernaut with connecting with younger people. He did the talk show circuit. He played the saxophone with the sunglasses and stuff like that. Everybody remembers
Arsenio Hall show.
Arsenio Hall, right.
Crossing borders that were never crossed before.
Exactly. Yeah. Gore was trying to do the same thing. Remember when he did Saturday Night Live and he was making out with his wife? You remember that skit?
just wasn't as...
What's that?
It didn't hit the same way.
But you know what? It's like if you look back on it and you look at Tipper Gore, she was kind of a fox. Right?
Nobody's hipper than Tipper. Wasn't that the line back then?
I don't remember that, but you know, I remember seeing something, and it was like probably one of those shows that was going over the 90s, and that skit came as a part of one of the things that they were talking about. And, you know, you watch it as an older person, maybe not so much a 22-year-old, because you're talking about like a 40-year-old woman at that point. But you look back at it as a 40, 50-year-old man, you know, she's not bad. She's kind of good looking. You know, you had good taste. She's 76 now. So
he's probably pushing 80. Kind of crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. You're pushing 50. I'm over it. So
I'm on level 49.
Level 49.
That's right.
Level 52
over
here. And that's what I have to do with the volume every year is to push it a little bit higher.
A little bit higher. You have to turn it down when you're looking for a place to park. Because I do. But I've been doing that for like 20 years.
Apparently I should have turned it up. This morning I was doing laundry and did everything perfect. Got the clothes in. You know, switching from washer to dryer, got the next load of clothes in and get the soap in there, but I never turned the washer on. So
man, why is insurance so damn expensive? What's going on? For those of you who don't know, Kevin, even though we're 25 minutes into this thing, Kevin is a prolific and profound insurance representative and advocate for those who choose and elect to hire him and bring him on board. He truly looks out for you.
Well, thank you for saying that. That was very nice.
Was that a good little setup?
That was a great setup.
All right. I'll send you the invoice afterward.
I'll try not to let you down. It's really hard to have the conversation without looking at the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So I was on a call last week with earlier this week, and there was data that was provided to us that showed that of the last 10 years, carriers have lost money 9 of those 10 years in homeowners insurance nationwide. Now, we used to get this data. I've been doing this for 15 years. We used to get this data on a state-by-state basis, but I haven't seen that in years. They're looking nationally now because the state-by-state silos don't matter. Mm-hmm. If they're making money in Tennessee, they're losing their butts in Florida, and ultimately it's what they're delivering to the shareholders that matter. So we really don't see that data state-by-state that much anymore. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot of reasons for the fact that they've lost money especially on homeowners insurance for that period of time. Mostly it's because of the number, the frequency and severity of storms and natural disasters, whether they be tornadoes, hail events, hurricanes in the Gulf area, wildfires out west. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously the terrible stuff that happened in January of this year.
You're seeing definitely like Tornado Alley even moving further east. You know, I think Tennessee is more tornadic than what we traditionally know as Tornado Alley.
Absolutely the case. You would typically think of Kansas, Oklahoma,
all the flatlands.
Yep. So we're seeing more and more of it. So really the challenge has come down to the frequency, the severity of the storms. And, you know, there was data I was looking at earlier today in prep for this. 15 years ago, there were maybe 12 events that cost over $1 billion a year and then adjusted for inflation. So today's dollars, $1 billion a year. And I want to say there were 32 last year.
Oh, wow.
So when you look at the total expense that carriers are having to foot, it's significantly higher than it was.
Yeah.
So about 2 years ago, you know, there kind of was a motion in the industry that we've got to change some things. And we've seen 3 things happen since then on the homeowners front. Premiums have definitely gone up, and I'm sure most consumers have seen that. You know, they might not necessarily pay attention if it's buried into their mortgage payment, but it's definitely gone up significantly, probably 30 to 50%, if not more. Deductibles. Now, these are the things that people probably don't see happening. But the carriers are coming back and saying, we're going to do a few things. We're going to raise rates. We're going to ask that the insured take a higher deductible, more skin in the game in the event of a claim than they have ever before. And they're not really asking. It's kind of like that IRS letter.
Right.
It's not a love letter. It's your deductible's going up. Here you go. Congratulations. So for example, I was on the phone with someone earlier today. Their deductible changed their renewal from $1,000 for a wind and hail event to $5,000 moving forward. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
And for a lot of folks, it could be a serious financial setback. And then the third thing that they're doing is they're reducing the actual provisions of what they're providing for coverage, right? So roof settlement, that's the number one claim here in Middle Tennessee is a roof claim. Not necessarily the most expensive, but the most frequent. So replacement cost is what you want, right? That means you pay your deductible, the carrier pays for the rest of it. And many carriers are moving to an actual cash value payout, meaning that they're only going to pay a certain amount based on the age of your roof. And that could be calculated a bunch of different ways. And then other carriers are saying we're only going to pay a certain percentage based on the schedule of what they would actually provide and pay out. Essentially the same thing. So higher deductibles and then less payout.
Right.
That's what the industry is doing. And my fear from consumers is they only see the premium, right? The premium's not the worst part. Let's talk about the worst part. That's probably the fact that your $20,000 roof, you're now on the hook for a $5,000 deductible maybe, plus you're responsible for that schedule situation 60% because of the age of your roof, 60% of the actual materials cost. They can't depreciate labor, but they will on the other side. So if people are looking at their premium and saying, my gosh, insurance is really expensive, what the heck has happened? Wait until there's a claim when you find out that it's not paying for the things that you expect it to because the contract was rewritten with your last renewal. That's what terrifies me from looking out for the consumer standpoint, is that especially little folks that maybe don't have the ability to pay for it are going to get absolutely hammer dunk by a natural disaster.
So what's the solution there? I mean, these things always invite fear and trepidation, uncertainty, but there's always somebody out there that's got to have, okay, but it's opening up a hole, an opportunity for something to come about.
100%.
What would that look like?
100%. So all the carriers have kind of done the same thing. They've all raised rate and made some adjustments to the coverage kind of in line with each other. Because if there were one or two outliers who said, you know what, no, we're not going to raise rates, or they would gobble up a ton of market share. That's not really happening though. But what we have seen happen is kind of a secondary market that will, in essence, pay for that wind hail deductible for you. Okay. So I've literally had access to this carrier for 2 or 3 weeks at this point. So this is brand new. It's a wind and hail buyback program, and it doesn't show up on your claims history, but I quoted one yesterday. It was $200 a year in premium for $10,000 worth of coverage, right? So this guy had a $15,000 deductible on his $1 million home with this particular carrier. We were able to offset most of that with a $200 additional expense that would, if he had a hail or wind event at his home, pay him $10,000, and then he turns around and uses that $10,000 plus another $5,000 in that scenario to pay the homeowner's insurance company to replace the roof. So this secondary market is something that has evolved or come about just very, very recently in the last month or so.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of interesting that you said that, because that we didn't talk about that in advance. Just for the record, you're just, the necessity something will come out of it.
It's the mother of invention.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I bet there's going to be a couple other companies that come up with it, and there will be, maybe in a year 5 or 6, and 1 or 2 of them will go out of business. They'll price it completely wrong, and they'll be overexposed. But that kind of is part of the solution.
Yeah.
is to kind of play the kind of layering the risk, if you will.
Now, your agency doesn't really, they're not big on advertising. They use a lot of methodologies such as networking on a personal level.
All relationship-based.
All relationship-based approaches. I've had conversations with other insurance guys about this who said the same thing. My immediate reaction as a consumer is like, dude, well, they're taking a bath on this. I'm like, cry me a river. Okay. As soon as I stop seeing, names of insurance companies on the side of football arenas and stadiums, then I'll have a little bit of concern. I mean, I'm like, that's the optics of everything aren't matching up for a lot of these major providers. Right. So I don't know. Is that something that you have to contend with as well? Do you get a lot of pushback? I don't see Goosehead doing that.
No, absolutely not. You won't see us sponsoring the Super Bowl halftime show or whatever.
Right.
I don't know, maybe though, but I'd severely doubt it. It's a $465 billion industry, personal lines in the United States.
Just personal. It's
a huge market.
When you add everything in, what are the two biggest lines? I mean, that people commonly go after, that would be commercial and P&C, right?
Well, it's all P&C.
Right.
It's all property and casualty.
That's true. Yeah.
Personal lines is generally where you start, which is, I've got a beef with my industry because of how we train our people. But typically what we do is we throw somebody who's new, starving, has commission breath, right? And we have them quote auto and homeowners insurance to people. And once they figure that out, we move them to higher priced stuff on the commercial side. Right. And then they never go back because they're never going to want to sell an $800 policy that they're making, $120 off of ever again when they can go into a $50,000 or $60,000 business policy. But to the consumer, to the individual, there's nothing more important than their home. They're probably their largest single asset. It needs to be protected well. We probably should call timeout and not just look at the price. We want to make sure it's protected well because it is such an important asset, not just because we love it and we call it home, but because we need to make sure it maintains its value. Most people's wealth is tied up in their home. Right? But that's not what the industry does. The industry just puts the newbies on it who are selling on price. So if the consumer doesn't know what to look for in a policy, they're making horrible decisions because the salesperson at the insurance agency just wants to sell a policy so that they can make some money. Yeah. It's really a situation that is putting consumers in a spot where they don't know what to look for. They're going to make a bad decision in the process. So
it sounds like the car business in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, so my MO is I can do commercial, but man, I'd rather work with people who want to get their personal lines right. And they value, they're not chasing $100 in savings and premium. They want to make sure that they've got everything written in a way that is going to respond well if we have an incident come up. Some assurances that they're well protected, that they're putting most of that risk off onto an insurance company. But back to your point about, insurance companies and, the numbers that I'm giving you in terms of the losing money 9 out of the last 10 years on homeowners insurance, that's based on an underwriting profit. Yeah. Right. I've taken in $1 of premium and I've paid out $1.22 in claims. Sure. That's an underwriting loss. They're not talking about the money that they invested all those years when they made profits that they're still making money off of. Right. That's a separate set of accounting that, is if they're public, it's going to go to Wall Street, their shareholders. That's a different set of accounting. The only thing that we're seeing is the underwriting position. Right. Right. Are we getting the right premium for the risk, the actual risk in the marketplace?
So they could, in the meantime, maybe pull from that other pool if they really wanted to.
Their argument is we've been pulling from that pool 9 out of the last 10 years.
Oh, really?
The pool ain't so deep no more.
The pool's getting empty.
Right. The pool. The pond is now a pool.
Don't dive into the pool. You're going to break your neck.
The pool is now a puddle.
That's right.
And we need to make sure that we don't go belly up. And you look at, there's been a lot said about, there's a lot wrong with California and insurance. What I don't hear enough of is there's so much regulation in California. This is secondhand. I don't have any business in California. I don't do business there. But from what I understand, the state has mandated you can't take more than a 7% rate increase in California. So if you're State Farm, which I don't represent, but the biggest player in the business, you look at all of your underwriting loss that you have there, and you're missing the mark by 50 points. Mm-hmm. And you can only raise your rates by 7 points each year. And what they did was they just pulled out of the market completely. Yeah. And now people are like, well, there's all these people that didn't have insurance because State Farm left.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that the media made it sound like, only 2 weeks before this happened. But it was like maybe 5 or 6 months that they made, I guess, a bulk of that decision to get out of the state. And then, whatever conspiracy-minded people are out there that think that the fires are however it happened, the people went into it. I mean, they knew they weren't covered for wildfire and those types of things. If a big animal like State Farm decided to get out.
Well, I mean, let's also there needs to be a little bit of accountability on the homeowner too.
Right.
So
that's what I'm saying, is that they know that they're not covered. I would think.
Yeah. And if you have a mortgage, your mortgage company will gladly provide you with what's called forced place coverage, which is terribly expensive and awful coverage to begin with.
It's kind of like buying insurance from the rental car company.
I don't know if that's good or bad, to be honest with you.
No,
I don't buy it. But
no. I mean, they have that. They offer it to you. And in this case, the mortgage companies are saying, well, if you don't have it, we're making you have it.
Right.
And it's going to come at a premium times 3.
Probably times 5.
Right.
And you think the coverage provisions are terrible, right? They're not in your favor. They're just protecting the bank's asset. They're not taking care of your stuff well at all.
Right.
But so if they had a mortgage, chances are really good that there was a forced place policy there. If you didn't have a mortgage, then, maybe you were in a case where you didn't obtain insurance and you decided to self-insure, or you decided to just kick the can down the road and, not take responsibility for the fact that you don't have insurance. Yeah. There are carriers writing in California. It's not impossible to find coverage.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those scenarios where someone's got to take responsibility for themselves.
Is it maybe a case of, because so many different insurances in the private personal lines, is it a case of sparsing out the different elements and maybe different companies pop up? Hey, we're just going to cover household assets, jewelry, things inside the house. We're going to cover, we're a roofing insurance company. Is that a play that could work? I mean, typically when you go that direction, it gets more expensive.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking outside the box. Is crypto a possibility? Maybe paying with Bitcoin or adding Bitcoin to the balance sheets of some of these bigger insurance companies? They certainly can swing it.
I haven't heard any of that popping up, but I'm also not in conversations with the folks who are running the insurance companies at that level.
Yeah.
From a product standpoint, what decisions they're making, what direction they're heading. I'm definitely having conversation with carriers on that level. It's just one of those scenarios where, again, mostly Middle Tennessee business podcast.
Right.
We're really lucky to be where we're at.
Right.
As bad as we feel like it is on the insurance side, it is nothing compared to our friends in Florida, our friends out west, Texas,
North Carolina.
Yeah. Texas premiums are insane.
Really?
Oh,
because of the weather events?
Tons of hail down there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's a 2 or 3% wind hail deductible, meaning 2 or 3% of your building coverage, right? So if your house is insured for $500,000, 3% would be $15,000, right? It's a big deductible, and wind and hail happens all the time down there.
Yeah.
So we're lucky. We're lucky. As much as we're grumbling about the average cost of premiums today here, It's still considerably less expensive than other parts of the country. We're still in the bottom third in terms of premium expense.
I remember this happening, when you have these major tectonic shifts in an industry, like what happened in music when everything went digital and Napster became an issue and all these people were downloading. That was kind of like, oh my gosh, no, we can't just give our music away. We have to monetize this somehow. They came out, I remember sitting there at the radio station as that was happening. Okay, what's the solution to this? We're obviously getting away from people buying CDs and full albums and things of that nature. It's becoming more of a single-driven business. Paying, downloading an entire album or your favorite stuff. Obviously, they stopped that with lawsuits and targeting certain people to send a message. Metallica got involved, and Lars was a big opponent to downloading and stuff like that. Streaming wasn't a thing yet. But the solution came out of a piece of technology that, maybe staved off the music industry's circling the drain time a little bit longer before things got to streaming. Obviously, that was with the iPod.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs came out with it. And you can go to the iTunes store and buy, songs for $1, which, when you add up how much did we pay for CDs back in the day?
12, 15.
Yeah. So it added up. It made sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You weren't making all the money because you could pick and choose what songs you wanted, or you could buy the whole album at a discount or whatever. But then that became streaming in a subscription model through all the different streaming Spotify's and stuff like that. I mean, there's got to be a solution around the corner for this. And it's going to be consumer centric. It's bad. I mean, whatever happened to the music industry, there was a little bit of a leap to where we are now. It still doesn't benefit the music industry, unfortunately.
It doesn't benefit the people who are really doing the heavy lifting in the music business. The songwriters are probably the ones that are getting the shortest end of that stick.
Yeah. And the artists aren't getting paid what they should be getting.
But the artists have figured out that if they do an exceptional job performing and an exceptional job of building that following, that's how they're making their money. I mean, obviously Taylor Swift is probably the best example of that.
Yeah.
Where people will mortgage their homes to pay for tickets to see the show.
Yeah. But you know what nobody's saying is that they're talking about how expensive it is to go see an artist. Nobody's saying, yeah, well, that's the trade-off. You get the music virtually for free.
Right.
If you want to come see the artist live.
Right. You're going to have to pay a couple $100.
It's going to be a couple $100.
Right. Which is what a Broadway show costs.
Right.
It's what it's not out of bounds.
Yeah.
And I love live music, but I don't go as often as I used to because it's not $22 to get in. I had an uncle who was a Worcester, Massachusetts cop, and he would find the scalpers and grab their tickets and give them to us. So we went to a lot of shows at the Centrum back in the day.
Forget about it.
But I don't know if there's anything. The good news and the bad news about insurance is it's a really old, well-developed industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's the good news, and why, if you're considering a career in insurance, chances are really good the companies are going to be around. They're going to continue to be here. There might be consolidation, but it's still a necessity. People need it. The government won't let you register your car without it, and the mortgage company won't let you get a house without it. So it'll probably be around for a while. The other side of that coin is it's not very innovative.
Yeah.
Like if I showed you some of the carrier systems that we use to operate, I mean, it feels like we're not even in the space shuttle era. We're kind of in the Skylab era or the Apollo era in terms of the computer systems. I don't think you'll see them innovating too much, and I would guess that they're probably not even entertaining the idea of crypto.
Yeah,
but who knows?
they're still operating like the dollar's attached to the gold standard. Maybe.
Well, they just got the memo, right? That came off,
Right.
70 or 72 or something. Yeah.
So there's got to be something there, expediting an efficiency move, that kind of a thing.
Another thing that's come out of this period. So it's been like 2
AI.
years for this hard market, right? So a lot of carriers are using AI combined with other technology to start trying to identify some risks that are problematic, right? So for example, travelers and a bunch of carriers are utilizing satellite data that they have programmed AI to look for certain characteristics, so that if I punch in that address of a match to that problem, it'll raise a flag and say, do not bind coverage, consult with an underwriter, right? And then you go and you look at the satellite imagery, and sure enough, there's a problem with the roof, right? Doesn't always work 100%, right? And I've taken screenshots of those a couple of times and sent them to clients as we're going through the process, and like here's what they're seeing and the problem that they see. And both of these guys said the same thing. So you mean to tell me they know if I'm naked in the hot tub? Well, that's between you and the satellite imagery, apparently. But,
right.
So there are definitely advancements that they're looking to incorporate into the process, but it's not.
It's not going to be quick.
It's not going to be something that is as agile as what you'll find. I mean, the wind buyback thing I mentioned a minute ago, that's using all kinds of technology to determine whether or not there would, where the highest likelihood of hail would be, and they're rating that differently than other areas where you're less likely to have hail or wind events, right? So they're trying to figure out a way to price it using technology and using historical data. That's very smart. We need more of that probably in the industry. And then on the auto side, we're asking people to again and again to download apps that are tied to the phone using location services, and you're explicitly giving them permission to take that data and utilize that data in the future for rating purposes, right? So they'll know if when you're at that red light and it turns green that you're jumping on it and you go from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And conversely, if you're braking that quickly as well.
Right.
Or if your tendency is to be on your phone while you're driving. That's obviously a huge rating factor, or one of the reasons there are challenges on the auto side is that people are colliding at much higher rates of speed than historically.
Really?
And the data is supporting that. Well, that's because they're on their phone.
Right.
And, if it was an 8-second lead time before the accident, you're jumping on the brake and have 6 seconds on the brake, and now you're colliding at 20 miles an hour. Whereas if you reacted slower because you were on the phone, you're only getting 2 seconds of braking time. You're colliding at 45 miles an hour, causing significantly more damage. Right? So, I mean, all of that is kind of being collected and baked into the new rating cake, if you will.
What about
there is innovation there.
Yeah.
It's just not anywhere near as fast as you would expect.
My son just started driving, got his license and everything, and he says, we all need to get dash cams. And I said, yeah, it's probably not a bad idea. I'm not opposed to it. Does that help anything? I mean, as far as documenting what happened, because that's certainly become a trend on Instagram Reels and stuff like that. You see TikToks, and there are people that do nothing but upload video from their dash cams of people driving like idiots.
And there's people like me that when you see them on Instagram or wherever, you watch like 15 of them in a row, right? Like, there's no impact on insurance at this point from a rating standpoint. But I can definitely see cases where if there was an accident and it's not clear cut, there's no witnesses, it's not clear cut as to who is at fault, how footage of that would be very helpful to keep your record clean or make sure the other party is found fully at fault for something.
Is that a typical situation that comes up not knowing who's at fault or that kind of a thing?
I mean, probably the most common thing to have happen is kind of a rear end. You know, we're at a red light and I didn't stop quick enough, and you know that's pretty straightforward. You hit somebody in the rear end, it's your fault, right?
Well, it's the person rear-ending somebody's fault.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Unless you're brake checking somebody.
Right. Right. But I would say for aggressive behavior, that would be a great thing to have, that the other party was, had cut you off prior to that and then brake checked. That would be brilliant to have on dash cam.
There was one I saw the other day. It was a guy just sitting there in his car, and you see a car just come out, through the rear windshield. He's doing 70 miles an hour, rear-ended the guy. And to the point where the seat reclined. He hit him that hard. And it was like, oh my gosh. The other guy was on the phone. Yep. Didn't see it. It was a kid. Came up right behind him, didn't see it.
And
broke the guy's a couple of ribs and all sorts of stuff.
Probably worse than that even.
Yeah.
Right? Like a former Williamson County B&I chapter member does a great job talking about insurance and the things that you should be doing. John Griffith, the personal injury guy. Some of his stuff, if you're not following him, follow his law firms.
Griffith Law.
Yep. Really, really good stuff on there. Some great advice about uninsured motorists, right? So if that guy that rear-ended the other guy at 60 or 70 miles an hour, your policy, if written well, has uninsured motorist coverage to take care of that. Or if they don't have enough, it would kick in. And, just good tips. So
John Griffith, also a hell of a Negan impersonator.
Oh, really?
From The Walking Dead. Yes.
I was not aware.
He put up a video of that back when Negan started entering the vernacular of the culture. And very impressive to see his impression.
Is he black belt in Taekwondo or something too?
John Griffith?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
Don't mess with him.
Yeah?
Don't mess with him.
Really?
Or mess with him and find out. I mean, that's
FAFO.
Yeah.
If you want to do with that one to John Griffith. We're going to take a real quick break here and use the facilities, and we'll be right back. Does your garage door sound like this? If it does, it's screaming for help. Call Incredible Doors, 931-348-DOOR. We're making garage doors in Murray and Williamson counties work better and sound better. We just make them incredible again. Go to IncredibleDoors.com or call 931-348-DOOR. Follow us on Facebook for specials on maintenance visits, keypads, and other items. 931-348-DOOR. IncredibleDoors.com. So somebody wants to get in. Well, first of all, you've been doing this for 15 years. You've got a pretty storied career. You worked, I believe, at Publix at one point, correct?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. And that was, you were also in mortgages. You sold mortgages for a season.
Well, I worked at Publix because I was in the mortgage business.
And 08 happened.
Right. And right. I worked at Publix to feed my children. Let's be perfectly honest.
But I mean, Publix it's a good place to work.
It's a great place to work.
Yeah.
I loved it. I would.
Did they pay well?
I worked in customer service on the front end. So, kind of managing, checking people out and bagging and that kind of thing. I love the interaction with people. That was a wonderful experience. And if it paid well enough, I mean, I was 35 years old and, had kids at that point. Management at Publix and I think Kroger too is actually quite lucrative.
Yeah, you told me that, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. Managers.
I had no idea.
Managers at Publix are well into the mid six figures.
Wow.
But like it ain't a cakewalk. Like physically very demanding. Lots of restocking of shelves. Lots of crazy hours, especially around the holidays. It is not a cakewalk of a job, but no, we moved to Middle Tennessee from South Florida with a mortgage company who at 4 months after we got here, they proceeded to go out of business.
Yeah.
And, literally dropped this on our heads. And so I called the guy that we were we were trying to recruit named Kevin Watson, who's in the B&I group.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hey, the deal's off. We're out of business. And there's 12 people here that all need jobs. And he and his boss, Greg Goodman, were in our office within an hour. And by the end of the day, I had an offer to go work at Countrywide, which, if you remember the players of the downfall of the mortgage industry.
I had them as a mortgage company once upon a time.
That, I mean, if I had a crystal ball, I probably would have gone somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right? But it, just a really tough time to be in an industry that's very relationship based. You're new in town. You don't have that many contacts. And, but what I did have was I had a lot of people who were in the mortgage business who I immediately called on when I started doing insurance. And that kind of was my start. But,
right.
Yeah.
What did you do before mortgages? Was that when you came out of the White House?
Oh, no. I worked for a media company in South Florida. So the daily newspaper in Fort Lauderdale is the Sun Sentinel. So I worked in their online division, and then I worked always in ad sales.
Right.
So I had a journalism degree. That was the reason for the White House gig as a student. It's kind of that White House experience where I was like, I don't want to be a journalist. Like, I feel like I'm playing these guys on the PR side.
Yeah.
I had no interest in doing that. And I again, lessons learned with the gray and thinning hair. I tell my kids and their friends anytime they sort of ask, or maybe it comes up sort of, I try not to push my wisdom unless they've asked for it. Like 20 to 25, you're probably figuring out what you don't want to do as much as you do want to do. So I worked in a couple of media companies, and then I ended up handling the real estate category for the Sun Sentinel for a couple of years, and then was like, I should do something in this real estate thing. I am not going to be a realtor. That's not putting people in my car all day, and then they decide not to buy does not sound like a lot of fun.
Talk about an industry that's in flux right now. I mean, it's in upheaval mode.
Well, I think the market conditions don't help. I would say most of what I've heard from leaders in the real estate world is the rate was always negotiable, y'all. You didn't negotiate.
You didn't ask.
Right.
Never thought to.
Right.
I did ask, actually. I did that when we sold our house in Vegas. And I said, well, I actually asked her, I said, so what's your take on this? She was like, none of your business. I believe were her words. And, I just didn't know any better at the time.
It was actually in the contract. I'm sure of it.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I had no idea. Yeah. Maybe I didn't ask the question the right way. And not that she was a bad realtor. We did trust her. She did a good job. But it was one of those things that I was like, oh, okay. Well, I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
I was 28 years old or so.
Yeah. That's an interesting, people never ask me how I get paid now.
Well, I would imagine I'm gonna make a guess, right? I mean, how many people really know, unless you're on the inside of insurance, how insurance people get paid? Obviously, you're doing it for a reason. I would presume it's for you build up enough of a base, and you can kind of ease into your retirement years, your golden years, with continuous money that pays dividends based on your customer base that you've built up in your have-to years. Now you're in your get-to years where hopefully that pays off, but you still got to work for it. So it's like you have that continuous purpose, but it lessens. You get to do things that you want to do later on. That's what I would think. But I would also think that you get paid on, like, whenever people re-up their premiums and sign on for another year or so, and there's a piece of the pie that goes in your pocket, as it should.
Yeah, I mean, it's insurance people are compensated based on a percentage of the premium.
Right.
That percentage is anywhere from 10 to 20%. So let's say it's 15.
And that's on a monthly basis.
Well, it depends on a bunch of factors, right? So let's say for auto insurance, someone pays on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
That carrier may decide to pay us all up front for the year, or may decide to pay as paid.
Right.
So as you're paying your $100, $200 a month, they're giving a 15% commission. And when that happens, if you think about starting with nothing to build something that is something, 15% of $100, $15 a month, like, that's not a lot of money. You need a lot of policies in order to,
you need at least 15 policies.
Yes.
At least
1,500 would be better.
15 to 1,500.
That would be a good little book of business to have. But I was telling someone recently that, the business has changed with this tough market that we're in, right? So it used to be that maybe 2 out of 10 people that had a renewal come up would be like, yeah, let's have a renewal conversation and we'll look around the market. I've got 80 carriers, right? Chances are really good I'm going to be able to help somebody. And now it's like 7 or 8 out of 10, right? So last month I wrote 40 policies, 20 of them were renewals, 20 of them were new, right? So it was a reshop situation on a renewal. 20 of them were new clients. And man, that felt like it felt like I wrote 100.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of romantic thing that you were doing about, you kind of ease into your latter years.
Yeah.
So I've done this several different ways in different environments. I've worked for a captive. I worked for Liberty Mutual back when they had agents that were direct. I've worked for big agencies. I've worked for small agencies. There's never enough meat on the bone for it to be anybody getting rich off of 15 policies. You really need a massive amount.
And if you get the 1,500, is that the number? Or is that just an arbitrary number?
I guess it depends, right? Like, well, how much do you need to make, right? Do you have a staff of people?
Right.
Do you, what are the premium? What's the average premium like in your market?
What's the headache factor per account? You know what I mean by that, right?
Where is there difficulty?
Yeah. You have to deal with your clients, put out fires, answer questions, things of that nature. Of course, it depends on your client. I don't make it a practice to call my insurance guy all the time, but I know probably some people do.
You're welcome to, by the way.
I know.
The back when I first started and I would write anything because I was only making $15 a month per policy, right? Like it was pure desperation. You tend to attract people who are not well off financially.
Right.
And those are the ones that have problems staying on the books. They can't afford it anymore, or there's no money in their bank account when they go to draft it out, and it becomes a headache. And I think over time, I've kind of gravitated to better referral partners and better clientele. So a lot of those headaches I experienced early on in my career. Now, that was the last dip in the economic cycle, right? So think 2010, 2011, we'll see what happens this go around. Hopefully it's not a dip. Hopefully it's just everyone's just scared talking about it.
I got to think that there's always a solution right around the corner, either adding maybe even a side hustle aspect, because you're having all these conversations with so many people that are intermingled with real estate, the mortgage world, that kind of a thing. Is there a play there? Maybe I know there's a product recently that I've been given the green light on to talk about. And, if one moves, there's a spiff involved, right? And like an affiliate program kind of thing.
Sure.
And that's the all-in-one mortgage.
Okay.
Right? Does that come up a lot with you where, because insurance is kind of a wealth play as well, helping people seek better tactical ways to achieve wealth in their life. Insurance plays a big part, especially when it comes to life insurance. You do that as well, right?
I do, yeah. But the stuff that you're talking about as far as building cash value and that's more of a Mike Mercurio kind of conversation.
Of course.
More of a holistic financial concern. The stuff that I do is mainly hey, we just bought a house, we're having kids, we want to take care of some term. Bless you. We want to take care of, we want to make sure these kids get through the scholarship years, I call them, right? Mm-hmm. until they're 20, 25 and on their own financially, that's your biggest risk, right?
Yeah.
If something were to happen to you during that period, it would really mess up the next generation. And term insurance is usually pretty inexpensive if you're healthy and you're buying it when you're relatively
and
young.
you're young,
Yeah. But from a standpoint, I mean, what's interesting about insurance is there's always something that comes up, right? There's an opportunity to talk to someone about another line of business, whether that's that or they buy a boat, or it's their 15th wedding anniversary and they're buying a new ring, and that's a separate policy that you probably should get outside of your homeowner's policy, but another story. But life would be a great thing to pivot to in those conversations, because you kind of know what's going on in their lives, right?
Yeah.
I've dabbled in the health world.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that is a whole mess. The amount of regulation involved over there that I can't. There's enough going on in my world for me to be an expert in that too. Maybe I just don't have the brain cells to handle it. Other people do. I'm not going to go in and half-ass it.
I always thought when I started with Mercedes, partnering up with somebody like myself in the insurance game who was starting out, to just be a referral partner. I get in front of people who constantly, if they're buying a car, I got to see who their insurance is. Simple ask of, hey, just out of curiosity, are you happy with your insurance company? If you wanted to shop it, I've got a guy, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. Hey, somebody got into an accident. You need to go buy a car. If it's totaled, here's my guy. You could trust him. Has anybody kind of pursue that kind of a relationship inside these dealerships?
Yeah, I mean, some people do. The challenge that I've seen, and the most recent one that I've seen come across, or an opportunity came up, was for like a buy here, pay here lot.
Right.
And those are not my people.
Right.
Right. And the other side,
you'd have to be at an actual branded car lot, dealership.
Correct. That would be my thought of where it might be viable. The challenge there is, do you want to work weekends?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't necessarily have to be at the dealer, but I just, where I'm at in my tenure, that's not what I'm chasing. But
if you're new,
it could be a market for sure, right, for someone to handle. I'm trying to spend quality time with my family on the weekends.
Right.
Whereas someone who's brand new, maybe doesn't have a family, that'd be a great market for them.
What is it that you're looking to do in the next 5 years?
Next 5 years is I am looking to package the knowledge that I have about what consumers should be looking for in insurance and offer them that advice. And I have a network of other agency owners all across the country where we can share revenue. So if this is someone from Vegas that happens across my content, hopefully that would lead to an opportunity for my partner in Vegas, who would then turn around and share a little bit of that revenue with me.
I know a good content production firm.
You do?
I do.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, please send me a B&I referral.
It'syourshow.co.
Look at that.
Right.
Boy, is that a little promo action? That should be a short right there.
It's my podcast. I'm going to give myself plugs, man.
100%.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
to me, that is, as I kind of look at where I'm at in my industry or my career, where my interests lie, I do think it's a little bit of a different experience working with me rather than calling into a State Farm office or a Geico 800 number.
Yeah.
And, what are those things that consumers should be asking about?
Right.
Usually we're thinking about everything in the wrong light. We're worried about price. Whereas if I told you for $100 more, you're going to get this, and this, you're probably going to spend the $100 more.
Right.
Sometimes no. Sometimes it is definitely about price, but other times it's, well, I didn't know that this was a poor liability limit, and I was leaving myself exposed to the Bart Durhams of the world by not having limits more like what match my net worth.
Right.
And those are things that people just don't think about because there's nobody in the insurance industry that's speaking about them.
Right.
It's always about price.
Let's say it's because people see it's a commodity.
Right.
You know, they don't drill down into the particulars.
Well, let me tell you, commodity means that everything's the same.
Right.
And the coverages are not the same from carrier to carrier.
Right.
We think they are.
Right. That's the perception.
But you get under the hood and you read, that's a legal contract. Read the contract from one carrier to another, and you'll be appalled at what some of the big boys do.
Yeah.
As far as reducing the amount of protection for the consumer.
Crazy.
Not really, though.
Yeah.
I mean, should we really? Do we really think of them as the noble people that they portray themselves as?
It's they're right up there. I mean, you're going to have exceptions to the rule in any industry. I mean, the legal profession, insurance. People see realtors that way, car salespeople for sure. You're going to have exceptions to the rule, though. I was one of those in the car business. I tried to do things in such an integrous way, probably to my detriment, but I always ended up like top 3 on the leaderboard every month. So
do the right thing always. You'll never finish last.
Right.
My beef too is like more than half the people that do my job don't have a clue as to what it actually is. They've never read the document.
Right.
Because it is really boring. It will put you to sleep. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't understand what the product is, and you don't understand that your competitor over here has a loophole that's going to leave somebody exposed in this situation, like our friends at Tennessee Farm Bureau have not covered roofs on full replacement for like 10 years now.
Right.
Now everybody is kind of in that same game, but Farm Bureau moved there 10 years ago.
So they basically, again, like the car business, you got so many dealerships that mistreat the client, the entire industry gets painted with a broad brush. They see you guys as, evil.
Right.
Yeah. Personal branding is the game to play for sure.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. Even Goosehead's great. It provides me with a wonderful access to carriers. The systems are amazing. There's all these benefits, but at the end of the day, it's not about Goosehead. It's kind of a weird name.
Yeah.
It's about me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really about trusting the person on the other side. It's kind of like the things that have changed over time. When I was at Liberty Mutual, the office in Green Hills, there was a customer that came in, wasn't my customer, but the guy that dealt with her sat next to me. She came in every single month and paid her bill with a
bag of pennies.
No, didn't take cash.
Right.
But she brought a cashier's check or a money order or something like that. But that was like, that doesn't happen now. Like, do not come to my office to pay your bill. Please, let's set it up on some kind of automated basis, and the staffing that would have to be there to accommodate that doesn't happen anymore.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
What is the weirdest thing you've seen in someone else's home? We'll wrap it up with a fun question.
The weirdest thing I've ever seen in someone else's home.
Yeah.
Probably a stripper pole.
Really?
Yeah.
It reminds me of, we just moved here and Courtney and I would go out with these people every other weekend or so. And it was people that Courtney worked with at the salon where she worked. One of whom's been our friend ever since. She's a great person, Sherry Hildreth. She does hair up in Franklin. But we went to one of the people's house right off of Duplex down here in Spring Hill, just to meet up before we go out to the bars or whatever. And we walked past their bedroom, and what do you think I saw? A camera on a tripod pointed at the bed. They left the door open and everything. I was like, Courtney and I were like, all right. Okay, we saw that.
And it's...
Where'd you see a stripper pole? And were they, of stripper quality?
No. But I understand it's great exercise.
Yeah,
It is.
That's
what I was told. Man, I saw some stuff in Florida too. That was
I bet
Florida's an interesting place.
Have you heard of the Florida man phenomenon?
No.
If you type into Google,
Oh boy,
your birthday and Florida man, some kind of a weird news story will pop up.
No doubt.
For every day of the year.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, so my time there, my wife grew up there. She was born in Fort Lauderdale. Ironically, the same hospital that the little girl we adopted was born in.
Oh, nice.
Kind of crazy. But I lived there from 95 to 07. And I've, again, in the news media, and I've never seen, like, some of the stories that come out of Florida are just...
It's weird.
The wackiest. If it's a weird news story kind of at the end of the broadcast kind of thing, there's a better than 50-50 chance it's coming out of Florida.
You're actually like a hipster halfback.
Hipster halfback.
Yeah. Know what I mean by that?
No. Halfback I get from the Northeast, and you didn't make it all the way back. Went to Florida.
Yeah, Florida didn't really live up to what you thought it was going to be, so you're going to go halfway back.
Yeah.
That's what I'm predicting for my brother. He wants to move to Florida right now. I said, yeah, it's all right. You got to get your halfback lesson.
It's right.
He started laughing. I said, he's like, what's that? I said, you're going to move down there. I said, he's looking at Naples. I'm like, dude, you're not freaking dead, for crying out loud. You don't have one foot in the grave. That's where a lot of people with one foot in the grave goes, to Naples. Okay, they're at the later stage of their life. I said, but you're going to be a halfback.
Boca del Vista.
Yeah. And he goes, and he says, you're gonna move from Michigan to Florida. Realize, okay, this is a place probably better visited than lived, and then come halfway back, most likely, hopefully, to Tennessee, where I am. I said, but why don't we just head that off and just move to freaking Tennessee, and we can both do something together, and buy ourselves a place in Florida. Or maybe a slab.
So, there's...
But you're a hipster because you were doing it before it was popular.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. There's a couple things about Florida that people should know. Like, the bugs are huge.
Yeah.
Like, I remember
Australia.
Yes. I remember coming back went away for a weekend or something, and Sunday afternoon getting back and, unloading stuff. And I walked into the kitchen, and there was a roach about the size of my phone in the sink, and somehow got the sucker in the drain and turned the disposal on, and that was the end of that. Yeah. It was an apartment. So
it survived, most likely.
Probably. It probably
Are they called water bugs down there? That's what they were called in Vegas, water bugs.
Water bugs, because there's no water in Vegas.
Right. So they went where the water was.
And then summer, summer is freaking hot. Like there's no other way to put it. Now summer here is hot.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Depending on where you are in Florida, though, you're going to get a breeze in the summer. We don't really get a breeze here. No. So I would say it's not that much more difficult here. You get more humidity in Florida for sure.
Yeah.
But no, man, I don't know if we talked about this before, but my oldest brother passed away last year. So he's 62 years old. Had a heart attack while they were getting ready to go fishing on Cape Cod. And my whole family is in Massachusetts. So there's kind of like this pang of going back there. And then I watched the news.
To live?
Yeah, long term.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, New England. And when I say Worcester, Massachusetts, you're like, why are you going to go there?
I mean, what are you thinking? Yeah.
But I mean, it's where your people are. And we spent a lot of time away. There's great resources for Kenzie, which is Down syndrome, where like we are not really good with special needs in Tennessee.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting and curious. And I literally could work anywhere. Like as long as I have a cell phone and an internet connection, I could function anywhere. So there's some thought to that, and spend time with my siblings, and the history there is our history there goes back to the Mayflower. So there's a little bit of a kind of a long-term gravitational pull back there. And really what it comes down to is my older kids don't want to be in Nashville.
Right.
They're going to go and do something else. So oldest is in Savannah, probably will end up in Atlanta in the film business. And then, middle is currently at Nashville Ballet and would love to end up in Boston or New York at a ballet company there, modern contemporary ballet.
Right.
So Probably, I mean, it's kind of one of those things that you get older, wherever your kids end up and start having grandkids, that's probably where you're going to end up.
Yeah. Not so much my parents, but,
Yeah.
and they kind of paid the price for it. My mom passed in February.
Mm-hmm.
I think early February. And it sounds bad because I should know this, but there's a whole history to our relationship that I won't go into. But that was what they, my brother and I used to discuss that was he was in Michigan, I'm here. And when my father was alive, they moved to Florida and enjoyed their time there. My father passed in 2006 and my mother was left alone, and okay, well, you probably should move somewhere near us. I don't want to. Okay. And my brother once called, he says, look, it's like senior suicide when you don't get near your kids if you're alone. You got to have somebody around, some sort of family.
That's kind of a generational thing because I distinctly remember my one of my brothers, not the one that passed, they were planning a family trip and they were taking an Alaskan cruise or something, right? A really nice trip. And my parents were retired at the time and like, why don't you guys come with us? Like, please let us gift you this wonderful, once in a lifetime vacation. And they're like, nah, not interested in doing it. Meanwhile, I'd be like, let's go.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was more that generation that didn't want to be a bother. Whereas my thought process with being with my kids is if I'm not with my kids, who would I rather spend time with? Right. No offense, Jim.
Well, that's completely understandable.
I
find it hard to spend time with me. I'm not easy.
It's maybe just a different value switch. Maybe we've had a better connection with that.
Well,
generation.
To me, when people say, or people of my parents' generation, or specifically my mother, would say, "I don't want to be a bother to you," it was a form of Catholic guilt, and that was to elicit a response of, "Oh, you're not a bother. Oh, now that you say that, we'll
right.
accommodate you and." Thank you for that manipulation, as small as it was. It was, you've won. Congratulations. That's what I dealt with.
Yeah.
I had the mom that would be heading out the door, and where you going? Mom, I'm going to do this thing that I've been longing to do my entire life. It is one of these events that I will likely see in the reel that is played before I die. Okay. It'll make it into that highlight reel. We always get a glimpse, a flash of life. Your life flashes before your eyes kind of event. I'm anticipating this particular event to have that kind of a magnitude. I'm so looking forward to it. It's going to make my day, my week, my month, my year. Oh, well, when you get back, we got something to talk about. I kid you not. That happened at least a couple times a year growing up.
And was it anything of great magnitude?
I don't remember.
It wasn't.
I don't remember. And that tells me everything.
Right.
Is the fact that it was so insignificant that for some reason, whether she knew it or not, you just completely pissed all over the fact that I was going to have a good time. Because now I got to worry about what the hell you want to talk to me about.
Right. It's kind of like when there's an IRS letter in the mailbox.
Exactly. Exactly. Nice full circle.
But maybe it's a refund check.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. My wife does that. We joke about that. I do that to my kids now, and they know I'm joking. Like my daughter was like, we're handling something, we're texting, and I said, "Hey, can you talk?" She's like, "No, I'm on a date." I said, "Okay, good. Call me when you're done because we got something to talk about." And she was like, "Dad!" I'm just dying.
Just trying to ruin the date. That's a great line to ruin the date. That's perfect.
I'll end with this. My father would do that, but one instance, I knew generally whenever he did it, there was a good chance of him just kind of funning you. So in our house, growing up, Danbury, Connecticut, my father was in the business telephone system business. And of course, by nature, we had a business phone system in our house. We would intercoms, the whole 9 yards, multiple lines. And I'm in my room doing my homework, and the phone pages. Jimmy, yeah, get in here. Okay, click. What the hell did I do? You start going through the Rolodex in your mind of memories recently of like, okay, my grades are good.
We in trouble.
You're trying to audit recent events. Who did I piss off? Did I say anything sideways to a teacher that complained? I can't think of anything. Oh, okay, let's go see what this is about. Meanwhile, you're like sheepishly walking through our sunken living rooms. That was my mom's thing. And he was in the TV room, and I kind of peer my head around the doorway. Yeah? He's like, can you get me some bowl of ice cream? I'm like, you son of a... And of course, he starts laughing. You know, it's really sad, man. I guess I'm getting into it. When my mom was on her way, declining, let's say, and the inevitable was starting to kind of rear its head. I was telling my brother this. I said, look, we're supposed to have a service for her at some point. I said, this sounds bad, but I don't know. I can regale really funny stories. And I was always there for her. She said I always made her laugh. I said, but I can't say anything really good about her. I don't remember anything positive. Okay. I remember funny stories based on negative situations.
Right.
You know? Right. But man, yeah.
You know, I something that's different about up there so both my parents have passed, 10 years, 11 years now. And when we went through that process with my brother last April, I mean, the people that show up for the wake and the service, it's like, I mean, it is like reeling in the years.
Really?
Right.
It's like a reunion.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. People I haven't seen in 30, 40 years. And
that's like a big motivator for me to want to do a service for her. Remembrance of life, that kind of thing. Just to get around people you haven't seen in a while. And it's like, we're never going to see each other again unless there's a funeral. So let's make the best of it.
Yeah. And I mean, there were all kinds of amazing people that came to my mom's funeral. But the one that sticks out to me the most was we all played soccer growing up. That was the sport in our town. And there was one guy who refereed more often than not. He was the referee that we would get. And a Greek dude, Demetrius Papadopoulos or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And he showed up for my mother's wake, I had 20, 25 years later. And, it was the kind of thing where like my brother would have the game at 11 and my game was at 1:30 and like, she was there for the whole thing. And she would have a Playmate cooler full of water and maybe oranges and maybe an adult beverage,
right?
Perhaps too. And, during halftime or between games, she was hooking Demetrius up, probably with either orange or water and not the adult beverage. But,
right.
That kind of thing, like those relationships matter. And, that's where my people are. So I'm just kind of like, man, maybe we need to be back in that area again.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, we shall see, but it is one of those things where when you see that kind of outpouring, man, I maybe took this for granted.
Every time I go to visit Connecticut, it's nice to visit. And after a while, you're like, okay, guys, I want to go back. This is, it's good to kind of fill the tank a little bit, get me out of here. A lot of people that we still love them, but they're miserable. And they're not even aware of it. You could see it all over them, but they're miserable. I'm paying, $15,000 a year in property taxes. What am I getting for it? Right. Well, you keep living here, so you must be a masochist. I don't know.
Right. It's the trade-off to that.
Yeah.
Another brother. I'm one of 5, by the way.
Right.
So my oldest brother was the one that passed away. So the next guy down, he got married. I guess it was December of 2004. The Red Sox had just won the World Series and broken the curse.
The comeback.
Right. And I distinctly remember after the service, standing around with a bunch of my cousins and my uncles, and we're talking about the Red Sox breaking the curse. And Red Sox fans they don't know anything other than to be in pain, right? And they're standing around complaining about the decisions that were made in Game 6 about whether or not they were pulling the pitcher too early or too late, and they're like rehashing pitch count scenarios.
Guys, we won for crying out loud.
Guys, hold on a second. You won. Would you freaking be happy?
Look, this is what we do.
Right. We vote for Kennedy's. We root for the Red Sox. We second guess
everything.
Of them. Right. Like, we don't think about it.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing. There is a collective suffering, and maybe it's the winter.
Maybe
I don't know, but whether it's over the sports teams or
I would take the Northeast winters over like a Michigan winter, because that's like frozen tundra, Canada, right? Arctic versus Connecticut, Massachusetts winters.
You're close enough to the ocean so that it's not ridiculously cold. Right. They get some ridiculous cold.
Yeah.
But you're typically not in the negatives for more than a week or two. And the last couple of years we've had some really cold weather here.
Yeah.
For Tennessee.
When we got this business going, jsquaredsystems.com for lighting, magnitudecolor.com. We had a job up in Parma, Ohio, which is just south of Cleveland.
Yeah.
It's actually a suburb. And we went in late March, and we had to spend about 8 days there. We were changing out troffers in what was to be an old-time pottery, so a big old retail space. And it was a really kind of cool experience. The whole floor was clear. We had the place to ourselves. You kind of got into a rhythm, wiring up lights and stuff like that, and all hands on deck, to get this job done. But it was late winter. There was like a blizzard every single flipping day. Nothing ever stuck, but it was like whiteout blizzard conditions. And I've always said, man, I've got my fill. My quota is full for snow. Done. I'm good. I don't need it anymore. We had to actually finish it up, and I had to bring a team up there in late April, which was a lot better.
Yeah.
So a little bit windy, but much better. Then I had to go up there for a summer trip. There was a video. Anyway, I had to go up there and do a podcast in like August, and it was very pleasant.
Yeah. So we've actually spent a fair amount of time in Cleveland for the dance kid would do an intensive for a week or 3, depending on the year. And downtown Cleveland didn't suck.
No.
Like I was expecting it to be horrible. It was actually quite nice. And there's so much old money that has gone into museums. And if you ever get a chance to visit some of those places, it's amazing. Did
you go to the Christmas Story House?
Did not go to the Christmas Story House, but I know about it.
Been there twice.
So good you came back.
Took the tour.
Good.
Yeah.
Did you go to Little Italy?
No. I was there. I took the tour. The first time we were there was that Parma trip for the lighting.
Okay.
And while I was there, I bought a leg lamp, full size.
Yeah, sure.
And when I went back for the podcast filming, I went back and took the tour, and it turned out the guy who was giving the tour, he says, how many people here saw the movie when it came out? And I was like, it was for a birthday party up in Connecticut. We were supposed to go to Waterbury, Connecticut for a Chuck E. Cheese birthday party, and it snowed because it was in November. And we ended up going to see the movie instead. And it was like a big part of my childhood growing up. I loved that movie.
It's a great movie.
He's like, you're one of the few. He says, the movie bombed at the box office. I said, really?
So
I didn't know that.
Now really full circle.
Yeah.
Musical theater or musical movie?
You think Christmas Story would be a good musical? Didn't they already do that?
I don't know. Did they?
I don't know. Star Wars, I was going to say that they kind of did that. Bill Murray did that on Saturday Night Live. Star Wars. He did the lounge singer guy.
Didn't see it.
Yeah, he sang along with not George Lucas, but John, the conductor.
Williams.
John Williams is the score, and he put words to the score.
So the recent SNL 50-year deal? Did you follow any of the music stuff?
I didn't.
Oh man, there's some great stuff on Peacock about the musical acts over the years.
Oh, maybe they kind of broke that out as a separate
Yes.
show. I think we did watch that. Yeah.
Outstanding. And there's a mashup as well, where like someone did a video of mashing up artists who've been hosts. It was incredibly well done.
Really? Was that the one where they went into the Sinead O'Connor thing and they're ripping the Pope's picture in half?
They did talk about how that kind of ruined her.
Yeah.
You know, it was a statement that came out of left field. It was she rehearsed something completely different. She knew exactly what she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it was a single camera shot. That's what she wanted.
Tight.
They thought that to be odd.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But they that's the beauty of live TV though. Like you kind of are playing with fire.
I think they made a whole episode out of the Need More Cowbell.
Oh, absolutely.
There was a whole episode.
Absolutely.
Like, that was probably the best skit they've ever done.
Never really much of a Will Ferrell fan until like now I'm looking back on some of the genius that he's produced.
Yeah.
So that was a good walk down memory lane for sure.
As annoying as he can be when he did this, Fallon cracking up was always funny.
Right. I mean, just no chance of not breaking. His gut is hanging out. Just fabulous. Fabulous.
Would you be able to hold it together in that situation?
No way.
Like I always think I could be a really good cast member of Impractical Jokers. Because I used to do stuff like that.
You know, so you got to think about the monotony of it, right? They've read through this thing for 4 or 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they know what's coming next, sort of, right? And then someone throws a curveball that is they've been thinking about for 4 or 5 days, and it just floors you. So I'd like to think that maybe you could handle it, but in the end, you know, there's
I can hold a straight face.
So much work that goes into that.
Totally.
Then maybe you should be playing poker.
Maybe I should be. I don't have a poker face, but I can hold a straight face. I can hold, like, it's going to be tough to break me. You know Doug Hanna? Does that ring a bell?
No.
He was on my radio station. He did like middays and stuff like that. Then he went to Salem Broadcasting and did a lot of, I think it's on XM for some of the Christian radio channels. But when we worked together at Mix 92.9, we were in the studio while he was doing his shift. Moose and myself. Moose was with Jack FM at the time, still is. And he's like, nothing you do will ever get me to break when I'm on the mic. I'm like, oh, really? Gauntlet thrown, my friend.
That's right.
So he starts going into a break. I said, Moose, get behind me and start pretending like you're, pounding me. So I had like a drumstick or something. And I took like the drumstick and put it in my mouth. And I was like, that kind of a thing. That's what got him. He started dying right in the middle of a sentence. And I was like, yeah, gotcha.
No video.
I know we should have got it.
This would have ruined careers, right? Like,
maybe.
Yeah.
I probably would have been canceled.
Yeah. HR would not have approved.
Yeah. Well, anyway, man, how do people find and follow you? You're establishing a social presence moving forward, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two sites that folks can go to. The number is 615ins.com is for my agency, 615ins.com. And then the content that we'll be producing that will be educational surrounding insurance is coverage-coach.com.
You had Trust Kevin, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I still do.
You should go with that. Trust Kevin, the coverage coach. Have both of those URLs point to the same page.
I was, someone suggested that I can that one because it flagged people's web browser security. The trust word was a concern.
Really? Mm-hmm. I still think it's a good moniker, especially for like a YouTube channel or something like that. Easy to remember.
I also had callkev.com,
right,
which I didn't know that I had listed for sale on GoDaddy.com until I received a notification that I no longer had access to it. And then I was like...
So I buy it?
I didn't know what was up. So I'm like, GoDaddy, what's going on? Like, why do I not have access to this anymore?
Wow.
And they're like, oh, you listed that for sale like 4 years ago. And somebody bought it.
Oh, where's my money? How much did they spend? They remember when
they deposited the money like 4 days later.
Really?
Yeah.
You remember what you sold it for?
Someone bought it for $1,200.
Nice. Good for you.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, they got their commission, but my take was
like $40 or something.
Did not have a comma next to the, but it was still like, huh?
Cool.
Okay. Good for you.
Cool, man. There you go. All the details, as usual, will be in the description. If you want to reach out to Kevin, I think you should, especially if you're shopping insurance and you're a lot of people out there are going through it. They're having a little bit of sticker shock, trying to figure out what to do next. Sometimes you just got to shop it. And I'm glad I did, and it worked out very well. Even though it's one of those things that we've been friends for so long that we've come back around. All that stuff will be in the description, like I said. If you want to be on the show, go to mmtbp.com. If you enjoyed the show, please share that out. Let people know about it so we can grow our customer base and listener base and customer base. I don't know why I said that, but listener base. All those things are right there. mmtbp.com for Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. Kevin, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.